Okay, we're here today with Andy McGovern to look at his amazing allotment. You call it an allotment?
Allotment, market garden actually.
Market garden?
Aye.
We've got Jane here, Chief Gardener. She's learned a lot today.
And
we've got my
gardening
daughter
to do.
here. And we're just finding out how Andy set this up and how he manages to make it work, in the hope that other people throughout the UK can actually do similar things on a smaller, bigger scale, whatever suits them, but it can be done. Andy, you reckon what, 60 boxes of veggies a week or something like that?
In this particular site we'd be able to do 60 veg boxes per week, and then some cafes and restaurants on top of that as well.
Yeah.
So aye.
So food for plenty of families from one area, and profitable. You can make money at it, you can make a wage at it, and you're loving it.
Well, that's it. That was my intention with the business when I first started it. I remember when I started growing, I had a wee raised bed at Shettleston Growing Project, and I went round with all my seedlings, and I realised what time it was when the sun went down. You know, I had an absolutely thrilling experience, and I thought to myself that day, if I can make a living out of this, then I've cracked it, and this is the way it's going to turn out. So
look at it today, a lovely sunny day, you're out here in the thick of it, at one with nature.
Yeah. No, it's
and
great.
I've not dug anything yet. I've done
No.
No, but it's really good. It's a lovely place you've got here, Andy, and it's all organic. So you know what you're eating.
That's it. You know exactly everything that's in the soil, and if
cutting out Tesco, cutting out Asda.
That's it. And if people come here and they become involved in the veg box scheme, you can come along to the sessions during the week, and you can sow the food that you're going to grow. You get a lot of customers that want to come down early and learn how to harvest the food. They want to pick their own food. So from seed to crop to plate, you can be part of that whole experience if you're part of the veg box scheme. So there's benefit in it, out with the kind of monetary benefit. I love it here. And then people that are spending money, they get much more than the veg box. You know, they get much more.
Compare coming here and picking it yourself and being part of sowing it yourself, and communicating with yourself, being part of this. There's a lock there, there's a farm cafe there. Compare that to the soulless experience of walking around Tesco with all the zombies of the world there. Buying stuff from a soulless farm that's been squeezed to death by Tesco, and we're giving that farmer that difficult position by buying it off Tesco, and he's got a crappy contract, whereas you're dealing directly with the customers. The prices are not going to be a million miles away from the same as Tesco, probably even better.
Well, that's the feedback we had last year, that the value in the veg box was greater. We were throwing in extra stuff, and you know what it's like at certain times of the year, you'll have a glut. But they say that necessity is a mother of invention, and I think that these type of farms and these type of projects, we are going to see a lot more of them, because the thing that we're going to need to get out of this is a real community. We need communities to come together, and we're going to need food. So we've been forced into this.
It's not a bad thing. This is the way we used to live anyway. People would have these garden plots and things like that.
That's one of the great things about when you get a volunteer in who's of a certain age. The nostalgia they've got around growing food, like rhubarb and the smell of the herbs. This is something that we've lost, but there's people alive today that remember all the fresh local produce that was just standard. There are people alive today that remember that, so it's wonderful when they come to the garden and get their memory banks, going.
And I had an interview last night with one of the girls, Sarah, from Awaken Education. And it was very, very interesting. It takes you back to that question. We're educating them, but what is it we're teaching them? We're not teaching them how to grow food at school. There's no classes on that. Why not? That's very important.
No, without a doubt, and I do believe that on sites like these, you can learn about growing food, Steve, but also your numeracy skills and your literary skills. For example, on a harvest day, if I've got 60 veg box customers and all of them have to get 300 grams of salad mix, you need to get a calculator. 60 times 300 grams, convert it into kilograms, harvest it, weigh it, and then divide it up. So if a volunteer is going through that task, especially a young person, the confidence they get from it isn't just the technique of harvesting the lettuce, but the fact that they could be able to distribute and allocate 60 people's food. And it's that type of experience.
But it's that, Andy, like what you said there sounded like a arithmetic question in a kid. If you had 60 customers to feed and I bet 60 vegetables, what would you?
That's it.
You get your calculator out, but you're never going near a vegetable.
That's it.
Whereas here you're doing it for real.
That's it.
And that's the difference, and that's what I think's missing.
out. Why don't you do one right there and make a wee hole? Okay.
Not good. This is a good show.
That's a good drill, isn't it? That's a wee spade. Oh, darling, you okay? Now you put this in here. Let me show you. Let me take this. And then all we're going to do is dig that up and put it to the side. Do you want to have a wee go? You had your breakfast this morning? Yeah? Yeah.
I just did this before.
Yeah.
Just dig a wee hole where Andy showed you.
Aye. And do you want to have a wee smell of what we're going to put in there? And this is called lemon balm. Alright.
Oh, she loves lemons.
You tell me what
Does it smell like lemon?
How's that? What do you think, Steve? Do you want a wee smell?
Nice. Like
Fresh,
it.
yeah.
Mhm,
So
very
that'll
fresh.
be beautiful in teas.
Aye.
So I'll get
And this will last now, Andy, like you plant it now and it's quite hardy, it'll last through winter.
So all these are from Steve is cuttings. So what I did at a certain point of the year is I've done a cutting. So I go down the stem and I'm going to cut it underneath where 2 nodes are, just here. And if I cut it from that point and get it straight into soil, it's going to produce roots. Now I did that at the start of the season, so you'll see that this.
So they're cuttings from your own plants?
That's it. This is all from a single plant.
Yeah.
All the oregano over there is from a single plant. So this is a good way of showing that through cuttings we can multiply all the plants.
Well, that's what people don't get.
Because I put these in at the start of the year, the root system itself is large enough that I can get that in. If I was to make cuttings now and put them in, they wouldn't survive the winter. But if I can get these in for about a month before it starts to get really cold, then these will do for next year and they'll do fantastic. So these will survive because of the root system underneath the frost, out of the way of the cold.
And you've got a couple of years experience of growing that particular plant.
Aye. Oh, this is a crack. I mean, the restaurants love this. I mean, they'll use this.
Let's dig it back in.
You're going to dig it back in? Oh, you need to make a wee hole for the plant. Let me give you a wee hand. But the restaurants love it because the kind of high-end places, they like to use it in their cooking, but also in the bar, say for cocktails and stuff like that. They love to have things like lemon balm, lovage, coriander, kind of fresh garnish for a drink. So it's good. And the people that you sell it to as part of a veg box scheme, now you help me get that round.
You pat it in there and pat it in.
You help me get this round like that. And you're just moving it round the plant.
That's it. That's it.
Great job. And maybe a wee pat round it. Do you want to have a wee pat round it with me? Yeah.
Just pat it down. Not the plant.
Not the plant.
That's it, Erin. Perfect.
Look at that. That's great.
Really good.
More there.
Yeah, that'll do.
So we'll rattle through this in no time. But this plant's great. I mean, anyone can grow this. This lemon balm is related to the mint plant. So if you can't grow mint, there's something seriously wrong.
Okay.
Alright, all you need to do is put that in the ground. And the reason why I've done lemon balm, oregano, mint is because they're all quite virulent. There's a term that we'll be used to.
That's an important term actually, because I think that's what people just don't understand. To talk about cuttings, I mean, I grew these things. I grew strawberries and carrots. You should seen the way these carrots turned out. They were pathetic. They were just big at the top and they nothing. They didn't have any length. They were huge at the top. I don't know if that was that the water was draining all the way through or something.
I think the problem you might have had there is the kind of looseness to the soil. With plants, you really need to dig down with a fork and get that all loose, because at the top there's no resistance to the carrot growing through that. But unless you've got a loose soil, it's just going to start to spread thicker and wider. I know some guys that will plant
maybe I didn't dig it enough.
way. They'll get a tube of plastic with piping and they'll hammer that down into the soil, and they'll do a mixture of sand, 50% sand and 50% soil, and what that ensures is really good drainage, but the pathway for the carrots to go through that, you pull that out, you've got exhibition carrots. So I tend to condition my soil if I'm growing carrots. I will put sand in it, and I will make sure it's really light and fluffy.
See, that's an instant schoolboy error that you could avoid by that conversation.
That's it.
You know, I didn't know that. I'm just thinking, I've got the carrots in wee pots like that. Stick them in, next minute I see the carrots forming at the top, Andy. They're there.
You think they're doing the
Pull them up, and it's like a big thick.
And that's it. There's no shame in that, Steve, because that's the wonderful thing about gardening is every year you will make mistakes, and that's just how you learn. You know, we're always going to have instances where we don't put the slug pellets down, it's going to be fine, or I haven't covered things over and there's a frost expected. Every single year you'll get bitten, but every single year you improve, and that's why it's one of those hobbies that once you get a hold of it will stick.
There's a way to get off to a better start, though, isn't there? Like less schoolboy errors, you know, like more best practice techniques from the word go.
Definitely, because you're dead right, because you'll put in a lot of effort and time in it, and if you're not getting that end result, especially if we're moving into a time just now where food's important, maybe more than ever, it's important that people are taking the best steps forward, because food is going to become really important this time ahead.
Yeah, and the thing is, if it doesn't work, Andy, you know, you can be put off. You know, I'm not like I spent maybe 300 or 400 quid. I got a couple of strawberries out of it. You know, I'm not jumping it. I want it to work again, but my first attempt was a fail. You know, had it been even half a success, do you know what I mean? I had herbs there that I never got to use, and there was a point where everything looked great. I don't know where it went wrong. I thought I was on fire with it, and then it just all withered away, and it all changed
as well. Like, I mean, sometimes you'll grow it. It'll grow fantastic, but really you should be harvesting that and eating it, and then you should have something else coming through as well. So sometimes it's just that. It's about learning the practice of successional sowing. So that's come through and it's looked great, brilliant. I'll harvest that because now this is coming through.
Well, that's what I was worried about against schoolboy errors. I had this kale, and I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know where to take it off and how much to take off, and whether it would grow back. You know, so I just didn't have the answers to basic questions.
Well, that's it. I mean,
and then you're busy.
No, definitely. I mean, at this site, that's what we hope to do. It's what we've done in Glasgow, is provide people first-hand, practical, hands-on experience. So it's nice to look up at things online, and these guys are great. The guys on YouTube. I mean, that's where I've learned the vast majority of my things, is guys showing you how to do it. But nothing beats a real experience, and we hope that people come down to this site and engage. We've had a lot of volunteers so far. A lot of it's footfall. A lot of people, like the gentleman you saw him passing and saying this looks great. These people have walked by this spot for years, so all of a sudden they're watching an organic market garden unfolds, and they're absolutely thrilled by it.
And what's the sort of acreage here? Would you class it as acreage?
The entire site is 0.5 acres, including the woodland as well. So I've got the option to develop that further.
And you reckon that this would feed, or you know, you could get 60 vegetable boxes a week for families?
At least 60 veg boxes. I mean, the polytunnel itself is a game changer. I haven't grown in a polytunnel that size, so that I know the amount of cucumbers and tomatoes that I'll be able to get from that, courgettes as well. And the thing about the polytunnel is it also extends the season. So instead of me waiting at the early part of the season, I can sow things quicker. And then my harvest will last longer as well. So, no, it'll be fantastic.
And can you grow all year round?
You can with the polytunnel, so you could do some ground covers. So you're going to create a polytunnel for each of these beds, and that's why the bed size is also important. I can get some PVC plumber's pipe over the top, and then some polythene material, and then just tie it down tight either end with a tent peg, pulling it back taut. So if we do things like that, we can. The trick there is to get the things in the ground early enough. So if I'm sowing things in October, it's not going to work. But if I'm sowing things late July, August, so that they're ready in October, and then get the cover over it, and if I've got enough of it, then I can harvest and harvest and harvest. Because things, when the sun goes down and becomes lower in the sky, they just stop growing. So again, it's about getting enough in early and then whittling away at it through the winter.
And you think, you've got a lot of people, Andy, coming up, you know, no job, they're going to lose their job. It's a bit of a crappy job they don't like anyway. They get a chance, get your redundancy money. Maybe they could do something like this. I think you pay a lease on this, you know, you didn't have to buy the land. You know, there's farmers who rent you a bit of land. Could a guy like yourself with 60 families buying your produce off you. This is all organic as well, isn't it?
Organic, 100%.
I mean, that would pay you a living wage, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the intention. I mean, my current job is I manage the YMCA in Tollcross, and I had a site which was 1/10 of an acre in Glasgow. I could have transitioned on that 1/10 of an acre to a full-time job, but with this half acre, certainly. Because it's not just the growing of the foods. When you're doing the volunteer sessions, then what you're doing is providing a service and passing on knowledge, so you can achieve revenue through that. We'd also like to get people down here for the day and have an experience, and a health boost, come down, do a bit of gardening, learn how to do it, harvest some food, maybe do some bushcraft and do that. Maybe we'll have a yoga instructor or a Reiki instructor here that day. So I think people would engage with that type of experience, so certainly a full-time wage. And
plus some as well, a business, you could have it as a business. An enjoyable business, more enjoyable than maybe the job they were in.
Well, that's it. I mean, that was always my intention, Steve. I started this before this situation unfolded, and I had a lot of autonomy in my role as manager of the YMCA. I answered to the board, but the board are, they'd faith in me, so I had autonomy to do that. But I think the next stage for me is answering only myself, and that was always the intention with the business, to run it so that it'd be a success, so I'm working for myself. It's just COVID's happened, and it now makes that imperative. So,
and obviously time is of the essence as well. I think everybody, in my mind, I'm a vegetarian, but I'm not, and in my mind I'm a gardener, but I'm not. So, but I think people want it now, and they're going to have to really start saying, do I want to turn my garden into something? You and I spoke about this. I posted the other day a little meme in the group, and it had like a lawn on the top, and it said, we need less lawns like this, and it was just a green grass lawn and more lawns like this, and it was all filled with beautiful vegetables, and the whole garden was used up, and everybody went crazy for it. So deep down, people love the concept, but they're not getting out there and doing it, and it's because they're maybe making mistakes. And the reason I wanted to come and see you today is to show people what you've done here, and to say, could versions of this, smaller, bigger, the same, be created throughout the UK? Could people have a job from it? Could they just learn from people like yourself throughout the UK and get a better harvest out their own garden? So there's less mistakes, because we don't have time. We don't have time to be 5 years and you're a good gardener. I think we need to be good gardeners next year.
That's it, with the kind of basic principles. And I think everything that you've said there makes sense. It'd be wonderful to see projects like this spread throughout the UK, because one, organic food production is key, and we're using the methods that we're using here, which have only been drawn from the techniques used in places like Canada and Vancouver. If people replicate that, they'll grow lots of food. But the thing about being a social enterprise, what Green Heart Growers gives is a social impact as well. So everybody that interacts with this site, they're going to come here, they're going to learn.
And what is Green Heart Growers?
Green Heart Growers is the business, social enterprise.
Right.
That's my business,
How should that, okay.
So I started that 3 years ago in Glasgow, and we were growing food there and supplying cafes and restaurants.
I wasn't sure if that was like a board or something above that you subscribe to, right? So that's okay.
Green Heart Growers.
Yes, it's a good name, and it's all organic. So you get the same thing in Glasgow, and a lot of the Michelin star restaurant, or one Michelin star restaurant.
One Michelin star restaurant, and then the Gannet, who are I work with Peter there at the Gannet in Finniston. They're not far off a Michelin star. So that was 2 of the 3 high-end places. There was also Bilson 11 and Denniston 2. So that was great. It was a different type of experience. When you do the veg box, nobody complains about the size of the Mizuna. But with the high-end places, you will get feedback that the Mizuna is too large by a couple of centimetres, which seems a bit kind of silly now within this context, but when you're dealing with these guys and they want the product to be just as, essentially you're doing bespoke salads and edible flower items much of the time,
Yeah. So Joe Boggs, the punter's less fussy.
No, but equally as enthusiastic. When I was handing stuff into the chefs for the first time, they used to comment the smell of the herbs as I walked in. I was going with a sample, I delivered it, with the coriander and dill, things like that. And it's the same with the veg box customers. And the wonderful thing they like about it is that it changes every week. And that's the way it has to be when you're doing a veg box using these methods. It's organic growing. I'm not walking about spraying things and guaranteeing that that'll be good. It's highly toxic, but it's just like that. Things happen. You might get a lot of slug pressure. There might be a drought. There might be a weed pressure in specific areas. And
Do you hand weed?
We hand weed, yeah. But
is that the best way to do it for organic?
Aye, I mean, in terms of the technique that we use, the permaculture method deployed here is no dig. So we try and till the soil as little as possible. So what you'll see here is that on these beds we've spread a couple of inches of manure all the way along. But the idea is that I'm not going to come in here with a machine and rotivate all that in. The reason for that is it speed things up. I could mix all that together. But there's a lot of worms in there, there's a lot of insects, a lot of things that are beneficial for the soil. So the less that I'm dealing with that and the less I'm moving it about, the better. So I'll do that each year, 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches, and it will settle down and settle down and settle down, and over time it will build the soil without destroying their life in it. Yep. And we like that method because if you think, the best way I can explain this, Steve, is you don't see God running about with a spade. You know what I mean? The leaves come at a certain point of the season, they drop their leaves, the leaves feed the soil feeds the roots, replenishes the tree, and that cycle goes on. And that's all we're doing, is we're replicating the methods in nature within this site, within a permacultural basis. So it's really fun for people to kind of learn these practices, because the thing about the no dig is it's less work. I'm no double digging soil like in the good old days, which is good for my back and also saves me time.
Yeah, and your volunteers come in. A couple of volunteers here. We've got Jane and Mark.
They come here, they drink coffee.
Jane's not.
Like that.
Jane's not. You're not dressed for gardening, Jane. What are you thinking? Mark is. He's ready.
You might have rubbed some dirt in the knees, guys. You know, make it convincing.
And the polytunnel. Obviously, there's a cost involved there to get that up and running. Are they expensive?
They have, for that skin, which I've got sitting just over here, a big roll of it was £900 for the skin alone. In total, the value of that is about £2,500.
Okay, yeah. but that you get a return on that investment because
I mean, that is the exact word. That's an investment. I can grow longer either side. So on each shoulder season, spring and autumn, I'll be able to grow longer and recoup that this year. Okay,
and this is a kind of amateur gardener question. I wouldn't even call myself an amateur gardener. Just say an amateur of everything. But an amateur question: how many harvests do you get a year in Scotland?
In Scotland, well, it really depends. I mean, what you're growing, but the way that we would do it here, and this is where it kind of differs a little bit from normal farm production, I'm not growing a single crop all varied at the one time. So I'll talk you through a typical week here. Each week I will sow the same amount every week, and I will harvest that amount every week, because I've got the same amount of veg box customers who are getting a veg box every week. So rather than it being 1, 2 or 3 harvests, which you could get for potatoes, early, middle, late, you'll know that, rather it's a succession of sowing every week, so that I can a weekly supply. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing a weekly veg box scheme. So it's more, in terms of harvest, what would I get? We would shut down normally in October, and we would start in the first harvest would realistically be middle of May. So it'll be May, June, July, August, September, October. So 6 months of the year, I'll be able to guarantee a fully stocked veg box. But then that goes into the question, what we're eating in the winter time.
Yeah.
And that's where perhaps with a larger site like this, we can develop winter products. So winter salad like mizuna, pak choy, kale, chard.
Kale's an important one, isn't it?
Kale's a cracker. I love growing kale.
Yeah, it seems to grow. That was one of the things in my little raised garden boxes. The kale came on. It looked amazing. I never got to. I kept thinking I'll harvest it soon, and then it shrunk away. It disappeared on me. But there was a point where it just looked really good, and I just missed the opportunity to whip it out. But Joe, I didn't know what to do. I should have just looked up online. I was a bit lazy, but I didn't know just to cut it, and and what was I ruining it? Was it going to grow back? These things. So I know you can make me, and I'm no daft. Well, I must be daft, but I'm not daft.
No, you're right.
You know,
And much of it, Steve, is to do with confidence. You'll know this whenever you try a new venture or whatever, it's like, can I do that? Other people can do it, but can I? And it's like that with food, especially where I was growing the food in the East End of Glasgow. We were growing food at times for people and they didn't know what it was. So what we've done is we set up a wee WhatsApp group at that time, and in that WhatsApp group, me and Max, my business partner at that time, would do a wee recipe and would show what was in stock that week and what we did with it. And then people were then encouraged to send in the final product and give the recipe. That took on like wildfire. That was like MasterChef opening up your WhatsApp for that. People were trying to outdo each other with all the organic produce, and they were creating. I was sending it to the Gannet. I was sending it to the chef for the Gannet, saying, "Look what these veg box customers are making." But when you develop that culture, and that's how the technology can be used to develop a culture in a community, you know.
Yeah, sorry, she's a wee.
No, not at all. I think I'm holding her up. So what about this one in here, Erin? You want to put that in the wee hole for me?
Yeah.
Cheers, darling.
And Andy, you came up here and stay over sometimes. Like you might come up here and maybe camp up for a weekend, and you get a wee bit of peace and quiet, and get away from the internet, get away from the telly.
Aye, I'll go up. I'll wait for Adam to pick the eggs in the morning, and then I'll go up about 7:30, come down, make myself a wee omelette, go for a wee swim in the morning. And I mean it, like,
Lovely wee lock there.
this place for me, like, I live in the East End of Glasgow, so when I come here and spend a day or a couple of days, I hardly want to go back, you know that?
Jane, let's get you in here, a wee bit of digging and stuff, just so that people can. She's got a wee trowel there, but she's no. She's just
one step there.
coffee in one hand, a trowel in the other. The trowel looks very uncomfortable in the hands. The coffee looks
It
very,
doesn't feel right.
very natural.
I'm used to having a keyboard at the end of
Why
it.
don't we jump in here yourself, here and then maybe Mark here, or vice versa. And all we're doing is with if you bring them over with you, Mark.
So what are we planting the lemon balm?
Tell you what, we're going to move on to a different crop, and you're going to tell us, surely by smelling this, what that is. Alright. Give it a wee bruise and the smell will come out a bit more. An Italian herb.
Gosh, I'm full of
That camera's still running.
That's we'll do a take there, right? We'll cut that bit. I'm not kidding.
taste test.
Which one is this? Is it that one? Yeah.
Oregano.
Aye.
Oregano's
so
a good one.
tell the difference, and then if you try this one, the smell of this, if you bruise that and just smell it, because it does work better as a tea. And yourself as well, Mark, you'll be familiar with this, mate. Yep. Yeah.
Can I have a wee smell of that stuff just to?
Aye.
The oregano just.
The oregano here, so from the previous plant, all we would do, these have actually been done a bit tighter, so we'll do one trowel length, so one here, and then yourself there. If we fill up this bed, and then if you can round at the bottom, Mark, and just come into that bed, and I'll meet you over here.
And these wee bits, these wee trenches here are for picking, to help with the picking and to create the beds.
That's it, the paths, yeah. So some people make them a foot long, but the guys in Canada ought to make it 0.8 feet. But I like to do half a foot. Like, I really like to I don't mind being a trapeze artist going through here if it means I can grow a wee bit more.
Yeah.
Sometimes it comes down to that. If I'm sowing radish, for example, and I'm doing rows of radish, if I've got 12 rows in as opposed to 9 in a 100 feet section, that's a lot of radish.
Yeah.
You know, so
It's just about maximising the
that's
return
it,
there.
maximising the space, yeah.
It's lovely.
So how long will this take to grow to
But that's
full?
to
Will
fill
this grow into a kind of hedge?
Aye, well, probably next year, what you'll see is they'll come back to life, but probably in the month of March, April, you'll see the first leaves forming, because these will die off in the winter, but it's perennial herbs will come back. And I would say by the month of, it's hard to say, it's different. We had a slow start to the summer this year actually. I would say by the month of May, middle of May, these would be about up to here.
So you're not planting them to harvest this year, you're planting them for next year.
This is me thinking ahead, Steve, you know, to get all my perennial herbs in. So up the back we planted some mint here in this bed, some volunteers last week, some more lemon balm, and then in here we've got some oregano and then some more lemon balm again, and down there I've got some winter savoury, and up the road I've got rosemary, sage and thyme in bigger pots. So again, these are all from cuttings, so everything that the guys are sowing, these are all cut from a single plant. So all I did was I took a bit of the plant here and I cut it beneath 2 leaf nodes. So these are the 2 shoots coming out the side, and I stick that in a bit of soil. So everything here is from a single mint plant, single lemon balm, single oregano.
Yeah.
Which is great, because if we get people down here, Steve, and we were doing a wee lesson in that, and we get 10 people, and 10 people go away with that skill, and who knows, go away the cuttings, and we can replicate the produce.
Yeah, they can take away the cuttings. And what about the actual vegetables then? So this is all the sort of herb selections up here. Where would the veggies start?
I'm thinking in these centre beds here, and the reason for that, as the sun goes round, there's a bit of a shading factor here in the morning. The sun comes up over here and it's coming round, but these beds here will get full sun when the sun's up here and then coming round. There's a shading factor over here next to the beds, next to my van over there, and that's where I'll do crops, salads that like shade, things like parsley and things like that, dill, herbs, things that I don't want to bolt and go to seed. But the middle beds, full sun, will be the vegetables, and that'll be things like courgettes, outdoor cucumber varieties, potatoes, onions, spring onions, carrots, beetroot. So aye.
Totties are really important to get.
Aye, totties are good, but the interesting thing last week...
Potatoes for our English viewers.
Aye, potatoes. There's a guy came last week from a market garden about 5 miles away, and he came in, he said, "How you doing, Andy? I heard you took this on. We're from the market garden down there, why don't you come visit us?" And that's great news for me, because if they're growing lots of potatoes, I don't need to grow them. You know, they guys are doing it, so I could, as a kind of lump order, I'll order the potatoes, I'll even go down and pick them up, and that means it frees me up to grow other things. And who knows, if I've got a glut of one thing, and then when you get that network of growers working together, then the thing about potatoes is that it's a long growing season. It'll take you at least 6 months, and the way that it works with crops, again, the world's changing, but the way that I used to think was each crop had a crop value rating. So how long is it in the ground? How many cuts am I getting from it? And what is the yield from that crop? So something like lettuce, people wouldn't think it, but lettuce is your most valuable crop. Because if I've been growing potatoes for 6-7 months, in that time I could have like 12 cuts of lettuce. So you're getting, you know what I mean?
So you guys could form a kind of cooperative and work out which vegetables you want to grow and then sell them.
That's it. Because who knows, my site might be more useful and more compatible for growing herbs. They might have more polytunnel space, so they're doing more tomatoes. So why would I grow a wee bit of tomatoes if I can take a big bit for them? So these are all things that just happen through conversation. Aye.
And have you met many of the farmers around here then?
Aye, they've been helping me. The guy that drops off the wood chip here, that's the farmer over across the road. The farmer who provided the manure is from over there. The guy here is a farmer himself. And this place has actually got a bit of recognition over the years from different projects throughout Scotland. Have you heard of Findhorn up north? So there's a relationship between here, which is incidentally Kinghorn by accident. So between Kinghorn and Findhorn for a couple of decades there was a relationship. So they've got good networks already.
Anyway, no, it's a great place. It's really, really good, and absolutely love what you're doing.
Thanks for coming, Steve.
All right,
Pleasure.
brilliant.
All right, thank you.
Great.